the United States. I have worked as a high school teacher for more than 20 years, the last 16 in a high school in Boston. I retired in 2017 and have since then relocated to Berlin. Prior to coming to Berlin, I had been also very involved in professional development, and since I have been here, I've been very involved with EuroClio, a member of the teaching and learning team. I am thrilled to have all of you here for us to work with you on developing Histriana's e-learning activities. As you know, the course is going to give you hints, suggestions on how to create your own activities, as well as to look at some of the existing activities and to help get a sense of how to make them better and or how great they already are. Before we do that, I want to turn to my colleague.
Hi, my name is Gijs van Gaans. I'm a teacher trainer from the Netherlands. I have been a high school teacher for a couple of years and then switched to teacher training. I have taught history, Latin, and I'm now a teacher trainer in both the subjects history and religious education, in both the Fontys University of Applied Sciences and the University of Amsterdam. And the same as James, I'm really excited for all you people participating in this course, and I'm really excited to see what we come up with at the end of the course. Before I give the floor back to James, I would like to give a first introduction into the Histriana building tool. To get an idea of what we're talking about, I'm trying to share my screen. You're going to see yourself for a couple of minutes. Yes. So I forgot to mention that I was also part of the teaching and learning team of EuroClio. EuroClio at one point developed an e-learning activity tool, an e-learning tool to create new lesson plans, new activities, which would allow students to train their higher thinking skills, historical thinking skills. And if you can see my screen, it looks a bit like this. This is one that I did for a workshop yesterday. It helps you to communicate both content in a new way, but it also helps you to use tools that would really engage students with specific learning skills. So for example, you might have the highlighting tool, which would allow you to create to give your students sources, to help them to really read the sources, to concentrate on certain aspects. But for example, we also have a discovery tool, which would allow your students to look at causes by clicking from cause to cause, and therefore trying to create their own timeline and so forth. Now we're going to talk about these tools a bit more in the next couple of sessions or the next couple of videos that we have prepared for you. But this is a bit of the general outline of the course. This is what we want you to do. We want to help you to create your own e-learning activities that would really help you to teach in your own classrooms by using e-activities, online tools, a new understanding of teaching history. So that's a bit where we're headed for the next couple of weeks. James, do you have anything to add, or we take over from here?
Just before I turn to another example, I want to just add that what we're going to be doing throughout this course is helping you create your own activities for your students, because part of the issue that is confronting many of us now is working online. And what EuroClio through Histriana has done over the last number of years as created a number of activities that are ready to use for students and or can be adapted. So I want to share with you, or actually we both are going to share with you one activity. First, I'm going to look at what is really good about this one. And my colleague, Heis, is going to turn to problems with it and suggestions to make it better. So now I'm going to share my screen, and I hope I'm doing it correctly. Here we go. Did it. I hope. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, James.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to look at the activity called coffee consequences. Coffee consequences is a very interesting developed activity because it does a number of things that are quite exciting. It starts off with an overarching question and moves us through different places in which coffee was created and in which coffee was used. And what is particularly interesting about this activity is it develops an overarching question. Heis will come back to that question later. Provides you and your students with background information and gives your students a task to do. In doing that, we move both in terms of time and in terms of geography. So here we start in the 17th century, looking at a particular place in Istanbul and asking students using the highlighting tool that Heis already mentioned to look deeply at what was written about this. Then we move to Venice, in the same historical period. And then we move to Vienna. And here we are moving again. We're now moving into the 17th century. So what I particularly like about how this activity was created is instead of only looking at one place, we're looking at multiple. Now we switch the focus a bit, and not only do we move away to India, but we move to production.
James, sorry, but I think that most of us only see the general page.
Oh, you don't see this?
We see the first page of the Historiana site.
Thank you. I think I know what I did wrong. Thank you. One moment, technologically speaking, I think I shared the wrong thing. Do you see this now?
Yes.
Alexander, Heis, yes?
Yes.
Perfect. By the way, I want to emphasize, while we are both going to be speaking, there will be time at the end for questions. And if during it you have questions, feel free to write that in the chat. So again, what I was beginning to talk about was the overarching question, background information, and the tasks. We start in Istanbul in the 17th century, asking students using the highlighting tool to look carefully at what they are reading. We now move to Venice, same period. Vienna, same period, a little later. And now we shift to production in India. This is a bit later, but obviously production is another piece of this story. And one of the things I like greatly about this Coffee Connections activity is moving around in terms of space and time. And now we continue to move, and in the same period, we're now looking at a colony in Suriname in which coffee is produced, of course, picked rather. We now move back to the 18th century, having your students look at different multiplicity of venues. Coffee houses continue in the same period. And now suddenly, through the Industrial Revolution, moving into the 20th and the 21st century. What I'm struck by in this activity for Coffee Connections is that in looking at it, there are ways that you can use it in your students and just use the activity without making any suggestions, any changes at all. Before Heiss moves to the problems with it, does anyone have any questions about the positive? Feel free to raise them. I don't see any questions at the moment. No? So should I turn to you?
We don't have any question for the moment, James. Just a reminder to the participants that they can also unmute themselves in case they want to ask something or use the chat, both work. Heiss, I think you're muted.
Yes, I am muted.
Yes.
I was asking, does everybody see my shared screen? Which is the yellow background.
11, right?
Sorry?
Page 11, the yellow screen.
Page 11, exactly. Because as James said, this, although this is a very good example of an e-learning activity, I wouldn't say there is very much wrong with it as such, but there are some challenges, some things that we could improve. And the first thing is that the question, especially as it is posed at the end of the activity, might not really help our students to really come up with their own answer and especially their arguments. Because if I ask you, has the impact of the global spread of coffee been positive for societies past and present? That is actually just a simple yes or no question. The question could be improved as they have done in the first slide. To what extent has the impact of the global spread of coffee been positive for societies past and present? I would add, and to what extent has it been negative? Right, so if I pose the question like that, students really need to come up with their own arguments, make their own assessment, and it's just not merely a yes or no question. So by changing the question slightly, especially in the end, when they need to answer it, the building block that helps them answer it, they need to have their own evaluation, right? They don't come up with that so easily. They really need to put forth arguments to explain why they think it's been positive or negative. I could also say, in what ways has the impact of the global spread of coffee been positive for societies? And then I need to reason more in terms like causation. Okay, coffee spread, and what were the causes, what were the effects of the spread of coffee? And I could even say, what was the most beneficial way that coffee was most beneficial in the spreading of coffee in the Western world, for example. So the first thing that we might think about when changing this activity is trying to ask a question that does not allow for easy answers. That does not allow for answers that they can look up in the text, that they can find just by reading or by looking at the sources. Especially no yes or no questions, but those questions that really need to think of, to provide arguments, to provide counter arguments if possible. That would allow for a much deeper learning than just simple, has it been positive, yes or no? The second point that might help, might improve this e-learning activity is that if we look at the sources that are selected, we actually have always a picture, a photograph, or something they can look at, and a small text. Now, this is a very good source to provide information and to provide a broad guideline or outline of the spread of coffee. And it's the same with all different slides. We have a picture, a figure, and we have a little text. So what the activity actually does, it provides a narrative that functions a bit like the narrative in your textbook, right? Because in most textbooks we have text and some figures or pictures that really provide a historical background or provide a historical image with the text. This does not necessarily lead to deeper learning. What other sources could we suggest? Well, we could suggest some sources that would allow for different perspectives, right? Was coffee as positive for all citizens in Europe, or were there people who were against the introduction of coffee, who tried to ban that, and why? What were the reasons to do so? We might try to incorporate sources that even contradict each other, right? So that students need to think about, okay, which source do I think is more trustworthy and which source do I think is less trustworthy or less valid as such? What kind of sources would that be? Well, we could look at, for example, public records, public regulations, or even personal letters that really need another approach than just it's a text and try to read a text and see what you make of it, right? It's really trying to put the source in a context, try to use your knowledge, not just to get the right answer, but first try to really understand the source and try to see whether it's trustworthy, whether it's usable for the question that we ask. So we have the question that could be improved, and we also have the possibility of providing extra sources, new types of sources. The last thing that I would change if I would use this activity is I try to look at the tools, right? We have now a simple tool that allows students to, if I could just show it, I can enlarge the picture and I can try to move around and try to really get into the picture itself, but it's more of a tool that would allow students to just really look into the picture at a greater detail. The source itself, if you look at this picture, this picture is just an illustration of what the text says. It is not used as a historical source itself. If I want to do that, I could use different tools. I can use, for example, the highlighting tool or the sorting tool, which allows students to sort different types of causes, different types of change in continuities, which will really try to transform the knowledge, right? This specific tool is actually quite designed as it is used here to relate knowledge. And if you do that, the e-activity becomes an alternative for your textbook, but it does exactly the same. So if I would use an activity like this, I think it's a very good first broad outline. It's a very good introduction into the subject, and your students might really get an idea of the development and of the introduction of coffee, which would be helpful. But really to answer the question without the question being already answered within these sources, I would add different sources that contradict each other, that they really need to say, well, who is right and who is wrong in this aspect. So that are the things that I would probably add to this to this e-learning activity. So when you're looking, when you were browsing the e-learning website, there are a lot of materials already put online, e-learning activities that have been created by sometimes by me and my colleagues, like James from the history and teaching and learning team, but also by other colleagues, colleagues like yourself, just high school teachers. Please browse those materials, and if you find something you can use it, but always try to think to yourself, okay, how could I incorporate my own insight? How can I really try to fit it into my own classroom? And what could be added? What could be changed that would probably improve this e-learning activity? So that's the positive and the negative side of these activities. There is a lot of good material, but you might need to add something or take something out of it. Always try to review the activities yourself. The next thing I want to discuss with you is, I think this, and I will give now back the floor to James. Sorry, I was going too quick. James, I think it's up to you now.
Unmute. Hi. Before I share my screen again, I want to reiterate what Heis just said. And also, as you will see, as part of the materials that we've created for you in the Learning Lab, in one of the videos, which deals with tools, I have shared some ways of improving the Coffee Connections e-learning activity with using other tools. Throughout the next 2 weeks, you're going to be looking at a variety of activities so that you will eventually, in 2 weeks, create your own e-learning activity in order to bluntly earn the certificate, or better stated, to get a sense of how you want to use these e-learning activities in your own classroom. What I want to share with you very briefly are 3 other activities that we've chosen to highlight in the activities we'll present to you. So here goes. To share my screen. So this is just the general. And as you know, I hope, having taken a look at the materials, there's a plethora of e-learning activities that you can use in your courses. What I want to emphasize are 3. Let me make sure I will do this correctly. I'm sorry, wrong one. My apology. Here we go. This activity you will see in the first of the 4 videos that we have created, in which Heis is going to be looking at this particular activity, who was the first true medieval reformer. And in this activity, as you will be seeing in an upcoming video, he will be exploring this particular e-learning activity in terms of how it can be used well. What I want to just point out very briefly right now is that things can always be improved. And as you will see, this activity raises some very intriguing questions. One of the things that you'll need to be careful is that when you look at these activities, you look at some of the sources need full and better citations. Just to bear that in mind when you create your own activities. We'll talk about that more later in the terms of the rubrics. Let me give you another example. Can you see my screen or not? No.
Not now, James.
All right, one moment. I'm sorry. There are different ways of doing this, and you can see your screen automatically. So let me see. Can you now see it? Yes?
Yes, it's coming, I guess. Yes, we
Perfect.
can see.
Okay, this activity, this e-learning activity will also be closely analyzed in one of the upcoming videos. This actually will be seen in the 4th video, in which Heiss is going to work through this activity to help improve the question that is asked of you. Is the word assumptions correct, or would a better word be bias or perspectives? And the last one I want to share with you is how did the first industrial revolution change working conditions in producing textile goods? In the 2nd and 3rd videos, I will be using this one to give examples of other tools that you could be used. Here, you're using the sorting tool. One could also use the discovery tool as well as the analyzing tool, comparing, contrasting, or other possibilities. I will be working through that in the 2nd and 3rd videos. Before I turn the floor back to Heiss, one thing I want to emphasize, if you haven't looked at the e-learning activity builder yet, is that you can use all of the activities that are available, download them to your own site, and make relevant changes, which we'll talk about a bit more when we turn to the assignment. I'm going to stop for a moment and ask any questions. People okay? It's so strange to have people only online. I see initials. Yes, we're okay? Then
Yes, James, there are no.
So far, so good.
we're okay. Well, then I'm going to turn this back over to my colleague.
Okay, now to take a closer look at the Historiana website and tool. Let me share my screen. You might have watched the first video, the preliminary video we put online. But for those of you who have not really encountered Historiana, if you go to historiana.eu, you'll see this website. And as we already explained, this is a website that tries to help history teachers from around the world to create their own activities, whether it be in the classroom or online. It has a lot of material that you could use. So we have historical content. If you click on that, and I hope my internet connection is fast enough, you will see that we have these units of information, of sources. We have key moments. We have source collections that you could use. So there's a lot of material that has been gathered by our colleagues from the Historiana content team, who are committed and trained historians, and sometimes also our colleagues in the field, just high school teachers like yourself probably. They have gathered a lot of information and tried to make that clear packages for you to use. So you could browse there and see what is already there. Some great photo materials, some great explanations, some other types of sources that might help you to create your own activities, to create your lesson plans. And we have the teaching and learning part of the website. And there you see we have already put a line, as I said earlier, a lot of learning activities. Some are e-learning activities, some are learning activities that you could print out and could use in your classroom. Again, take a look. There's a lot of different subjects, of course, mostly on European history, but not all, I believe. On a lot of different subjects from different parts of Europe. See what you can use. So if you try to work through your own e-learning activity, right, be sure to look at other examples. Be sure to see how they come up with stuff, which tools they use, and so forth. So there's a lot of material already present for you to use. Now, for today, I will, for this course, we will concentrate on two parts, which is My Historiana and the e-activity builder. Now, I'm going to show you how you can register on Historiana. But what you would probably see is the first thing is My Historiana. This is my website, and these are the activities I developed or started with, or just first drafts. So you have the possibility to create your activities, and they are saved on the website themselves. So you don't need to save them on your own computer. Whenever you have an internet connection, you can use your own activities. And you could share your activities, right? So you could even say, I want to share them. I can share them with my students in a different type of environment, and I could share them with you. Just like my colleague had done, Alicia, when she provided you links with the activities. The main part we are going to use is the e-activity builder. And it actually is a very simple tool. We're going to look at that in greater detail, but it allows you to use a certain type of blocks, right? That's the text block that provides you with the opportunity to give your students some text, some introductory text, or some other explanation you want to give them. There is a tool that will allow you to answer questions, right? And that tool might even allow you to put them online, those questions. We have the embed, so you can embed sources more like videos or music from online sources. And those are the sources that are actually meant to, to relate information. But we have a lot of other blocks, other tools that will allow students to really engage with the sources. So we have the sorting tool that provides with an opportunity to, and we're going to see some example of that later in the course, that provides sources, and they can move the sources around on the screen and try to sort them in different categories or different other types of you could provide a chronological sorting, whatever you want, but allow students to really use the sources and switch the sources and sort them, actually, of course, on the screen. The analyzing tool is meant for, we have seen, to really analyze sources, to enlarge the sources, especially images, and see what's going on, really to get into the source more deeper. The highlighting tool highlights different parts, usually the text, and comparing tool provides you with the opportunity to provide two sources next to each other so they really can compare. The discovery tool I have shown you in the beginning, that's the timeline which you select, and you can really, if you have the timeline and it has different types of information, and each time the student clicks on one information, that which is caused by that is made clear, and they can click further. So they can really explore the timeline and causal relations. So this is what we're going to work with. It is a very good tool to get a more active way of teaching, to create a more active way of teaching. Now, to get access to this, and I'm going to log out, you just simply need to enter the historiana.eu in the search part of your browser, and then click on register. And then we need your email address. You can use your password. Try to remember the password and put it in the second time, and then register, and that's all. And then you have the possibility to create your own activities and to save them online. That's actually all. So that is the first thing you might want to do, is register on Historiana. And please feel free to browse and to look what was already there. Now, the second tool we're going to use, of course, the Learning Lab from eTwinning. And what you see here is we have different pages and we have different parts. So we have in each part, or in most parts, a video. So part 2 would have a video and would have an assignment. Try to watch the video. If you have questions, ask them. And after the video, there is an assignment for you to develop in different steps your own e-learning activity. Now, to help you develop those activities, we are going to provide you with feedback. And to hand in feedback, you want to click on one of the assignments, and you will see here that there is a due date. For the first assignment is October the 14th. You will see that it's not a really big assignment, so there's not really a lot of pressure, but it's good to know that the 14th, we like you to hand in just a couple of elements of your final activity. If you scroll down this assignment, you will see that there is a shared folder in Google Drive. We would like you to create your own Google Doc and then put it in the shared folder. We will look in your Google Doc. We will try to read that and provide feedback. And we're going to do that in 2 different ways. One, we're going to give comments in the text that would help you to maybe reassess it or give you an extra idea. Whatever, the feedback is meant to help you improve what's already there. The second way of giving feedback is using a rubric. James is going to explain something more of the rubric. But we're going to But we're going to use a rubric to assess if your activity and the things that you have handed in is of enough quality to pass. If it's not, you might really need to change a little bit, and then we'll reassess and give another feedback. So the main outline is we have 4 activity blocks. They are mentioned on the Learning Lab. Most of them contain a video and an assignment, and at the assignment you will see the due date. You hand it in through Google Doc. On the last one, except the last one, you would hand it in through the Historiana e-activity builder. And each time you've handed in, we try to give you feedback. We have promised each other to give you feedback within 2 days, so that you could use the feedback to make the next step. Did I say everything we wanted to say, James, or did I forget anything?
I can elaborate the other dates and then talk about the rubric. Shall I?
Okay, that's fine. Let's start sharing.
Hello, I'm back. Before I share the rubrics, I want to just reiterate what Gijs is saying. The whole point of this course is for you to do some work, and one of us will then give you feedback. The first material is due by October 14th, which is dealing with topic. The second, October 17th, which is dealing with sources and tools. October 20th, instruction and assessment. And finally, October 26th, when we see you again, is the final product. Let me be a little bit clearer, and I will share my screen again. Hopefully I do this right the first time. There we go. So what we created, which is useful not only for ourselves, but also for this course, is we created a rubric to help you think about how you want to provide and create excellent topics, excellent questions, excellent sources, excellent tools, excellent instruction, and finally assessment. So if you look along with me, and I'm assuming that most of you are familiar with rubrics, so that here, if the first assignment, which is due on October 14th, deals with topic and inquiry questions. When we read your materials, we will keep in mind this rubric. Is it exceeding? That is, if is it exceeding, the topic provocatively provides an unresolved question. Perhaps it isn't so good, but I sure hope it will be. If it's meeting, approaching, or beginning, we will give you feedback to make it better. So let us say, hypothetically, the topic that you're giving poses an important issue. What could the issue be? Well, perhaps the Industrial Revolution, proposing something, but not actually giving a provocative one. We would then give you suggestions to make it better. Likewise, the design of the inquiry question, which is also due on the 14th. Is it rigorous? Is it addressing an issue relevant to the topic? Is it facilitating deeper learning? Hopefully it will. If we perceive that it isn't, meeting one of these other portions of the rubric will give you feedback to make it better. October 14th, the first drafts of these two blocks, one video and something to read. October 17th, the next two lines, sources and tools. There, you'll have a material to read and two videos. Video 1 deals with sources, video tool 2 deals with the tools. Clearly, we would like you to use a variety of sources that assist your students to look at things from multiple perspectives. Tools, we want you to think about how to use the tools to have your students be more competent in higher level thinking. October 20th, the third interim assignment deals with instruction and assessment. These two lines. There you'll have another activity or something to read and a video to see. And there we hope the instruction will be extremely clear, the assessment unambiguously accessible. Whoa, we are trying to have you do what you probably already do in the classroom. We have 15 minutes, which means we have time for questions. Shall I stop sharing? Shall we, or does anyone have questions about the rubric before I stop sharing it? Feel free to unmute yourself, as Alexandra said earlier.
James?
Please.
We have some questions in the chat.
I can't see the chat.
Forward. Maybe I could put them forward.
Oh, great.
I think that our two questions are quite related. The first one is, my question is about the map of Historiana. I wonder if there is an activity list for referencing historical thinking skills. And I hope I pronounced the name right, is by Sibyl Yali. I hope he or she is still with us.
Yes.
Okay. Could you please elaborate on your question? What kind of referencing would you like to see?
Actually, I want to see which activity is related to change and continuity, which activity is related to the other skills like perspective related, for example, or looking for sources. or writing activities, etc. And also, I want to learn about the age levels.
The age levels. Okay.
Thank you.
Could you? I think I really understand your first part. We do have some explanation, but if people want that, we might provide a small overview of what could be helpful. And several tools could be used for different approaches. But I understand that it would be convenient to have a first idea of what can I use for what type of question. So that's a good question. The second part is the age groups. What would you like to know about the age groups?
Sorry, may I? Are you asking for the age groups to me? I didn't understand your question.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the Historiana is suitable for the secondary level.
Yeah.
And so if for example, for early childhood, is it possible to prepare the activity kit, for example? I wonder.
Yeah. No.
Or elementary or primary levels. So this is my question. The focus only is for secondary, or other levels can be included?
Yeah, I think that's again a very good question. We don't have the answers just yet, but I would suggest that feel free to if you want to create an activity for younger children than in secondary, please mention that in your Google Doc and ask the one giving feedback to think with you how would approach this. Would this be helpful? Right. I do think that the people who will be assessing and giving feedback do not have any personal experience in primary schools. At least I think James hasn't and Lars hasn't, and I certainly have no experience, but I think we would like to explore that with you. So I think it's a very relevant question. I do not have the answer at this point, but if you could put it in your Google Doc, that's something that I really would like to explore with you. What would be helpful?
Last year, a group of teachers, I as a mentorship, we prepared an e-twinning project. And this year, I would like to conduct a research, a case study for early ages. I would like to use the table from Pera Museum, Istanbul, relating to the what kind of skills can be developed in the early ages of the students. I would like to check in this case study with the teachers and the group of students. So that's all. Actually, I am interested in historical thinking skills for secondary levels. But I also I'm interested in the very early stages. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I saw somebody in the chat saying, okay, but this is the age group I want to focus on as well. So again, I think we would love to explore the possibilities. Please remind us in your Google Doc what type of age group you really want to make your activity for, and we really like to think with you, right? We like to explore that, what the possibilities are. A second question was from, I think I pronounced it İlknur, who is also from Turkey, who asks, visual materials are important for historical development ability. Are there interactive and digital content on the maps? There is no interactive source material at this moment, as far as I know, in the Historiana website. So there are no maps on which you click and then some highlights or a certain development is shown. I do think we have the possibility, if we have found those maps elsewhere, to embed them. But that's something that I need to try out myself. I don't think it's present on the source materials as this. Most source materials are collected from museums, other heritage institutions all over Europe. So the source collections that we have gathered are not produced for education as such. Right? They're more of the things that we already had in Europe. Okay. Okay. The last question, James, and this is something that we need to discuss, is that Don Corina says that 14 October is too soon. And she asks if we can let them hand it in at the 20th of October. I think that is a difficult one, because we planned to finish on the 26th of October. And if we start, postponing deadlines, I think our planning will not work out. James, what are your thoughts?
I think that I would need to concur, because the structure of the course, from our understanding, is that we're meeting again in 2 weeks. And when we meet again, you would have needed to have gone through the interim activities and then to have completed the final. So I think the time frame is what it is. One way of thinking about the time frame, however, is the topic and the question, which is the one that is due on the 14th, using the rubric. If you already have a topic and or question, you can start with that, and we will then be giving you feedback by the 16th. So that should help you in moving forward.
Yeah.
I hope that more or less answers the question. I understand the issue.
Especially when you're teaching a lot of classes, it could be hectic indeed. Yeah.
Other questions of clarification? Anything that either of us can clarify? I believe Alexandra is still here. Yes.
I'm still here. Yes.
Great. Sorry. If there are other technical questions from the Learning Lab, any of us are more than happy to help.
Well, yes, these 3 questions were mentioned in the group chat, and they are already answered, but we still have some time. So please, if you have any other question regarding the Learning Lab, regarding the presentation, please feel free to ask the trainers or me.
Well, I hope we have not overwhelmed you. And I hope that neither of us, particularly myself with my American accent, have not spoken too quickly. Some of you were grinning, so I hope that's...
Guler on the chat has one more question. Instructions for the activities will be on the TwinSpace, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
You will see...
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, Huss.
Can I, maybe I can share my screen, and then you might get a good idea. So you have the Learning Lab.
Just a clarification. Sorry for interrupting. Not TwinSpace, but Learning Lab.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. So there are 4 activity blocks. And if you look at there's different parts of the activity block. For example, the first one is a live session. There's a short video, and there's an assignment. So each activity block has at least an assignment, and most of them have video. Only the last one doesn't have a video, because in the end, you just need to collect all the earlier assignments and make it into a coherent e-learning activity. So if you look at a activity block just first look at part 1, then at part 2. There's the assignment. And if you look at the assignment for activity block 1, you'll see we have written out an entire assignment with sometimes with examples, sometimes without examples because the video gives them, and then with a clear assignment what you need to do, what you need to hand in. So just follow the activity blocks. There are different parts per activity block. If you follow them, it should be all right. If you follow them and something is you don't understand, there's something you don't understand, please feel free to reach out to us through the Learning Lab. Is this an answer to the question that was asked? Is this clear?
It sounds like there's a technical question. Has that been, oh, okay.
Ah, yeah, I see. Okay.
Where do you put the answers? You create a Google Doc, and in the Google Doc, you then provide us with the answers so that we can then assess them. Does that answer the question? Can we choose topics of national, European, or world history? Of course.
Please select the topic that is most helpful to you. There could be something that you're really passionate about, or something you need to teach in a couple of weeks and want to experiment. This course is meant to help you use the e-learning activity builder tool, but also to hopefully add something to your own abilities and possibilities as a teacher. So we're here to really help you improve what you all probably already know. So please select those topics that you feel most comfortable with or most inspired with, right?
So we're okay?
I think we are okay. I would just like to ask Heist to stop sharing your screen, please.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. So yeah, I think this is pretty much it. We don't have any other question as far as I see on the chat. I would like to thank all the participants for being here with us today. Also, a big thank you to the trainers, James and Heis. The recording will be available on the Learning Space for those of you who could not attend this event today. And once again, thank you everyone for attending this live event. Thanks, Heis. Thanks, James. That was very informative and valuable. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.